When the one in a million ponderance of what my favorite Kirby game is conjured in my head, my mind rolls for a bit, and within it is an echoing signpost arrowing towards the one and only Kirby's Dream Land 3. I've never really understood or cared for why. I knew it definitely had to be something weird and silly, but the first puzzle piece was always listening to the world map theme, Popstar. You know, suddenly, things make a little more sense. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say anything good about Kirby's Dream Land 3. When it comes to Kirby games on the Super Nintendo, people just always default to Kirby Superstar. But ever since I played Kirby's Dream Land 3 when I was younger, there was always something about it that stuck with me. I didn't quite know what it was, but it's definitely one of those personal feelings that I nowadays wouldn't see in the game. And I thought that would be interesting to talk about. This might not make sense to y'all, but that's kind of the point. And for those wondering, no, Kirby's Dream Land 3 was not my first Kirby game. Like, there's a whole ramble about how everyone's favorite Kirby game is the first one they play. Not the case here. Kirby's Dream Land 3 marks the middle of what is known by the Kirby gamers as the Dark Matter trilogy. Basically a notation of what Kirby games are the coolest. I say, not even having finished Dreamland 2 and basically forgetting Crystal Shards. Not because it's forgettable, just it's been like nearly 2 decades, give me a break. Final boss in Crystal Shards goes hard as hell though. Dang, maybe I should have done a video on that instead. Okay, anyways, I'll quiet up on everything around Dreamland 3 and just start talking about it. And just as a reminder, I see this game in such a weird light that my interpretation is going to sound like I played a ROM hack or something. I'm creating ghostly fanfiction of the reality on this game. I find the intro of Kirby's Dream Land 3 to set the mood very well. I'll let it play because I believe it illustrates the points I wish to make on this game. I find this to stand out so much to other games. I think Kirby games, it starts out with some bombastic intro, but here we got this semi-melancholic music as we see this entity taking over the planet of Popstar. And yeah, this does lead into the bombastic music for the title screen, which after the intro and for the rest of the game, feels sorta out of place. But the story is pretty simple. This dark matter has spread over Popstar and is basically destroying the planet, which is one of the things that makes this feel like such a departure from most Kirby games, that this game stands out from them. Kirby isn't protecting his planet and the world from a threat, it's already here, it's already destroying it. Starting our file and entering the game world, we see just that. Appearing on this overworld screen with the dark matter covering the planet as the ambient music washes over. This song of ominously blowing wind over the softer sound of hope. Like light shining through darkness. Entering level, or World 1, Grassland. We see a level selection screen, each level indicated with an icon of a character, above them an empty box. And so, we enter. Let's talk about the art style presented within Kirby's Dream Land 3. I absolutely love it. From all the unique animations between Kirby and his Player 2 partner character, Gooey, to all the backgrounds and areas, it's such an amazing look. I've heard people compare this art style to the one present in Yoshi's Island, and I don't really see the comparison either. When I think Yoshi's Island, I think those strong black outlines. Kirby's Dream Land 3 is very soft, no strong lines, they're colored, and an overall washed out feel, like a watercolor painting with a lot of white space within colors. I enjoy this look, especially when compared to Kirby Superstar, which always had such a weird palette. Like, Kirby was purple in that game, basically. I don't know why that game in Avalanche gave Kirby that ugly ass purple color. But we all know how history went, and this sprite became the representation of Kirby moving forward, rather than this softer, rounder pink. The visuals mesh so well with the music of this game. The sound font and choice of instruments makes them feel so much more weaker and soft. Not to say there aren't any intense songs, but there was definitely a unique sound to it. Like the song Iceberg, just this random intense song with such an alien feel to it. Kind of an experience of a song to listen to. It's just not music you'd expect to hear in a Kirby game. It's hard to explain, but it's this distinct combination of art and music that always gave Kirby's Dream Land 3 this sort of melancholic feel to me. This soft art style with the bleeding whites in places makes me think of this state of the world being wiped out by the dark matter, that the world itself would normally look like how it would in other games, but with how much damage dark matter has done, it instead looks sorta sloppy, as if everyone's bodies are fading away. The title screen itself being the character standing in that void of white. Continuing with this level, we witness the Kirby gameplay we've come to know, inhaling enemies and getting their powers. However, upon going into a door, I am greeted by two gamers. These are the animal friends, and they are one of the coolest parts of this game. Some of them return from Kirby's Dream Land 2, but there are a couple of new ones here also. They are basically separate characters the player gets to choose as, having unique movement, such as Nago the cat, with this screw attack triple jump, or Rick, the best one, being able to wall jump, or Koo's rapid air dashes feeling pretty nice, alongside Kind's making water levels actually pretty good. Even the way they inhale is unique, such as Rick, the best one, having no range but being able to move around while inhaling. With a lot of this stuff, it took me a bit to notice. I could give an example for all on how they drastically change getting around areas in this game. But if that wasn't enough, depending on Kirby's currently equipped copy ability, it grants a different idea of that attack. Cutter for Nago could be this anti-air shot, while Cutter for Rick is this Kirby boomerang that essentially makes Rick the playable character with an orbital Kirby familiar.
Righto!
For as honestly stagnant and unchanging these Kirby abilities have been in so many games, these present what is often completely new abilities in a light never replicated by Kirby again. And Rick?
Crikey!
Buddy, do you see the rotund factor on this one? Some of these animations are just so fun and playful. I like the effort gone for them to be shared with Gooey, the co-op companion who can also spawn in as AI, which isn't very useful outside the final boss, because it costs health and the AI just sucks, like it wouldn't eat anything. Like, aren't you hungry, gamer? Eat up, stop spitting it out. The animal friends can also be carried from level to level, making Kirby's Dream Land 3 better than Donkey Kong Country. Regardless, going through the first level of the grasslands, I come across a screen with a flower, just like the one in the icon for the stage selection, and hear this sound effect. This sound effect gives me life. Knowing that Rick was too good for me for this relationship to continue, I decide to break up with him, traveling on foot and flying around the flowers. I continue my flowery avoidance until reaching the end level door, indicated by the 3 stars above it. I pass through the door, and this happens. This moment single-handedly lit my body on fire with the essence of feeling. I remember why this game is cool again. Let me explain the structure of this game now. Every stage has a character relevant to it as the icon, and that's because every level has a mission to complete. The mission of the first level, which I have shown, is to not step on any of the flowers. Upon the end of the level, depending on the player's actions, they would either have failed the mission, the level's client looking sad, or succeeded, being awarded with a happy face and a collectible heart star, which will fill those previously empty boxes to signate a level's completion. And the music for accomplishing the mission is just so nice. Such a pretty song. I've legit been listening to it on loop for like an hour while writing this script. Coming back to this game, I made a decision with this playthrough after so long, that upon replaying this game, I wanted to do it as pure as I could. In the way that I promised I would not look up how to obtain any of these heart stars, as if I was playing the game for the first time. I'll tell y'all how that went later. These heart stars and the characters within them is what gives these levels identity. Without them, gonna be real, this game wouldn't be that interesting. And these levels would be rather boring. These missions truly are the heart of this game. Having to do mini puzzles mid-stage or utilizing a certain character or ability, every time the player makes it to an instance where the mission is on the line, it plays that sound effect, as if a warning telling the player not to mess up. Lock in, Kirby. Making it to the boss of the first world, Wispy Woods, I had at the moment failed one of the missions. Unsure how to complete it, I simply moved on, with the intention of returning to it later. So I defeated Wispy rather easily. I find it funny that with Rick, the player doesn't take damage from the rushing portion in the second phase of the attack, instead opting to become orbish in nature, which is pretty excellent. With Wispy defeated, Kirby does the typical celebratory dance before moving on, much like any other Kirby game. I am then automatically moved to the next world of Popstar. However, I decided to follow my words back to the first world to revisit that one mission yet cleared. It took some trial and error, as the character of the mission, Michi, would appear halfway through the level, but I didn't know how to interact with them, and reaching the end of the level, they would just look scared. Well, it was actually pretty obvious. They just wanted to get their cheeks slapped. I can relate. Going back to the level select screen now, I noticed that the boss icon, Wispy Woods, was flashing, so I returned once more to battle him. Defeating him now, with all heart stars of the grassland collected, this happened. This blew me away. This scene, which left me awestruck, was like something out of the climax of an RPG. That was so cool. Now this is more like it. When compared to the rather been there seen that of the celebratory Kirby dance, this is how you punctuate the end of a world with significance. And now, upon returning to the world map, does the darkness of the area truly disappear. With this, I can finally talk about what makes this game so cool and unique to me. Kirby's Dream Land 3 is a story with the melancholic pretense of a world being slowly taken over by an encompassing entity known as dark matter, while we the player must purge it with a path of friendliness. This is the only Kirby game I played where Kirby didn't feel like some chaotic, powerful being with no care of those around him. Instead, in this game, despite the world being on its last days, Kirby still goes around, helping and interacting with all these characters, bringing them joy. He feels like the guardian of Popstar in this one. Name another Kirby game where we actually get to see and meet the colorful denizens of Popstar. Name another Kirby game where we actually should care about the world we're trying to help. This is the only Kirby game where I actually got a feel for the world through the people in it. I don't think we ever really got to see a majority of these characters again. Nowadays, Kirby just seems to think the only nice inhabitants of Popstar are the Waddle Dees. What about all these characters? The cameo appearances were so cool also. It gives this feeling of everyone coming together, important characters of their own stories giving Kirby's adventure more weight. Like, shoot, this is so serious Samus had to get involved? Just the connectedness and idea of Samus heading over to the snowy areas of Popstar to take out the Metroid spotted there, but then getting caught up in this dark matter thing. Like, I wonder what her journey was like. And that shot of her standing with the falling snow is just so cool. Crossovers in games nowadays can never be as exciting as it was back then. This game stands out from every other Kirby game intentionally. It laughs at those who treat it like any other. This isn't some high-action combat game about taking enemies down and running through stages, equipped with abilities boasting many attacks to eliminate opposing entities. It's a slow-paced puzzle game, where abilities are more useful in their way of solving puzzles rather than fighting enemies. I played Kirby Superstar shortly after finishing this game, and within one level of Kirby Superstar, I feel as if I fought and defeated more enemies than I did in my entire playthrough of Kirby Dream Land 3. This isn't a game about stopping the big bad from taking over the world. That's already happened. It's not about saving the world, it's about healing it. Kirby can't clear dark matter by just fighting. He needs to help those around him. Just like the overworld song of hope shining through darkness, despite the world around them dying, it's by making others happy that Kirby can truly cleanse and help this world. It's by making the world a better place, combining the joy and will and hope of the people of this planet, can Kirby truly stop dark matter. He can't just use force alone like always. The planet is in danger, and everyone is coming together to fight back with the love of being alive. This is illustrated in the fact that the only way to get the good ending and fight the true final boss is by collecting all these heart stars. Ignoring the pleas of others leads to an experience just like any other Kirby game, even with the typical fight against the big bad DDD at the end. Thus deservedly deserving an unsatisfactory cliffhanger ending, one where an oblivious Kirby, matching the oblivious player choosing to ignore the heart of this game, smiles happily, feeling success in being a failure, as the dark matter looms above. That's what I love about Kirby's Dream Land 3. It's a game that encompasses hope and love for the world. The combining of this essence unleashed through joy to create the ultimate weapon to cleanse the darkness encroaching upon the world is one of the greatest forms of hope I've encountered in a game. And it's what makes Kirby's Dream Land 3 so special to me. Which is why, overall, I can say that Kirby's Dream Land 3 isn't very good. Yeah, actually, getting to this point was a f***ing pain in the ass. God, this game is frustrating at points. Yeah, I'm hitting y'all with the tonal shift. As much as I love the premise and idea of this game, I'm not just going to let the actual gameplay slip by. And replaying this game has definitely made these aspects far more noticeable. I mean, y'all know me. I'm always here to talk about the gameplay in these games, the game design. It's what makes up a majority of these videos. So there was no way I was going to finish this video without talking about the more down-to-earth criticisms I have on this game. It just wouldn't be complete. Not for a spacey soundy video. So let's get into this. Starting with the first and most obvious thing that hits the player from the start, and arguably gets more noticeable as the game goes on. The movement. This game feels so awful. It just feels bad to play. Even when I'm enjoying myself playing the game, there's just this negative feeling trying to drag me down. Kirby Signature's float is so sluggish, it makes me not even want to use it. It kills all momentum and makes Kirby feel like a 420-ton weight. I didn't mind the underwater segments in this game, yes, the ones where they make your abilities perform at half speed, nullifying the use of half the abilities in this game, because the whole game felt like it was underwater as soon as I pressed the jump button twice. Everything is laggy, and it is fascinating. So many abilities are nigh useless for any sort of interaction with enemies, just because of how long they take. If we don't include half the abilities that are already completely useless to every facet of this game. Take this game's version of Beam, which can coolly be found through giving Rick electricity. Shaco! Beam was always one of my favorite Kirby abilities, and I must say after playing Kirby Dream Land 3, I hate myself just a little bit more. I haven't tried Kirby's Dream Land 2 yet, but it had a lot of these similar abilities, and I'm gonna see if they're more laggy or not, and tell y'all on screen what I thought. But for as cool as these abilities are, they are just so unfun to use. Attacking feels more like a waste of time than ever, but with how awful floating is, honestly, just start tanking hits and sliding. There's no smooth running and attacking flow to combat. I run, jump, and attack in this game. I halt my momentum and wait for my attack animation to end before allowing me to move again. But what absolutely, most definitely kills this game instantly is the small amount of lag from landing from a jump before the player is allowed to dash. So many times throughout this game I would land on the ground, double tap a direction, and the dash just doesn't come out. It's not the end of the world because it's not like I'll miss a platform and die because Kirby has infinite jumps, but floating already feels bad, so it's a combo. Regardless, it still led to me taking damage. It's the same sensation of having inputs being eaten, when really the player needs to wait a bit after landing before they can run. And it just never felt like it had a purpose. The only time I had fun moving in this game was with Ku in the air and Kine in the water. While some animal buddies somehow made this game feel even less fun to control, Ku's and Kine's fast dashes felt amazing in comparison to anything else. Like, golly gee, I'm on cloud 9. We have boost power, gamers. Total game changer when the player has these two. But arguably just chilling out and getting high with Ku while mashing away wasn't the most engaging gameplay, but it got me through levels faster. I know I said this game wants to be more like a puzzle game than a combat game, but it's undeniable that there are still screens of enemies that are mostly best avoided, but some of them take up a majority of the level. And even though they're extremely rare, there are mini bosses. Honestly, probably more bosses show up in this game than mini bosses. There's one mini boss in particular that is awful. I actually think it's probably one of the worst designed mini bosses put into a Kirby game. It's the Umbrella Yokai mini boss one. I can't believe I'm looking this up. Jumper Shoot. Actually, that's a pretty cool name. I'm glad I looked it up now. Gamer disgusting. If you don't have an ability while fighting this boss, then just quit the level. Not even joking, it will be faster to just restart the level, due to the boss's 50-50 chance of launching the Geta, which can be shot back, or just becoming invincible and flying around to waste your time. It only attacks every 4 jumps too, so this takes forever. Combined with the already weak damage of star shots, it's like, dang, nap time already? The other mini bosses I fought were actually pretty fine, even for abilityless Kirby. Another problem with this game I have was the invincibility frames after taking damage. They are way too short. The player is heavily prone to getting comboed to death. Just take a look at this clip here. I'm desperately trying to get my power up back here because it's necessary to complete the mission, but I'm just getting juggled. When you take one hit of damage in this game, it's likely going to get followed up on. Mix this with Kirby's sluggish unresponsiveness, and enemies can straight up vortex you like being trapped holding down back in the corner of an anime fighting game. I swear, this is the hardest Kirby game. It is an actual struggle. And the missions? Woo! Don't get me started on the missions. Most of them are pretty cool. I'll talk about my favorite one in a bit, which ironically is probably the one that people hate the most. And I will say that despite everything, I didn't have to look up any guides. I did manage to go through everything. Sometimes I had to replay levels, but it generally made sense. Regardless of this, levels are very pranky. Sometimes you need an ability or animal buddy to complete them, and I swear there are missions where they aren't even in the level. And if you die midway and lose that ability or animal partner you needed, well, this game checkpoints at the start of every room, and some of these missions only have what you need at the start. So get used to just leaving levels, it's just faster. Like that example when I got comboed to death at the Metroid level, well, I lost my ice ability. It's just a quit out now, I can't do anything, why even bother continuing? Missions at their worst are when they require the player to get lucky with choosing the right path to go. And if the player messes up, well, sorry. Try again. Hopefully next time you'll guess right. Literal choose the right door mechanics. Or when the game gives the player a bunch of enemies Kirby's can get abilities from at the end of a level, and then it's just like, ha! You didn't grab Needle. Ha ha! Back to the beginning for you, loser! Like, how was I even supposed to guess that I needed Needle when this is the picture the level gives me? Some of these levels are just designed to be replayed. And all things considered, it's not the biggest deal. These levels are very short. And I mean, to be fair, don't the newer Kirby games make you replay levels anyways? Returns has you replay the entire game again. Forgotten Land has that absolutely absurd system of mission objectives and levels where they don't tell you them until you beat the level, sometimes needing to beat the level several times. Now that's nasty. At least here I can try to guess. Even if sometimes it's like, what the hell, is this flower burnt or something? Oh no, it's just dusty. Yeah, dusty flowers. Pull out the feather duster on these cornbread snackers. Level names might have helped this game out a lot. And don't say just ignore the missions, because beating this game without fighting the true final boss is an experience so hollow you might as well not even have played it. The gameplay of this game is just so unfun. I can't think of a moment I was ever having fun playing this game, outside like 2 levels. At most it was okay, but commonly, the sluggishness and trial and error structure of the missions brought things to a subpar level. And for a moment, I thought that maybe it was my special Super Nintendo I was using, possibly the controller I was utilizing. So to make sure, I booted up Kirby Superstar for the Super Nintendo. Let me tell ya, Kirby's Dream Land 3 makes Kirby Superstar look like F-Zero. 1 second into Kirby Superstar, it feels so much better. The movement, the camera, Kirby's sprite being smaller helps out. Instead of the weird ass landing lag on your jump before a dash, you can buffer a dash before you even hit the ground. It's so much more responsive and snappy. A guard to avoid scenarios where you're going to get hit, which even if you do, Kirby has longer iframes in this game, so it's way more forgiving. I know some of y'all are like, well, Spacey, that's not fair. Superstar is much more refined because it came out after Dream Land 3 was released and they learned from it. But I'm always surprised to relearn the fact that Kirby's Dream Land 3 came out an entire year after Kirby Superstar. What happened? Kirby Superstar is by far the better game. But I like Kirby's Dream Land 3 more. Yeah, another tonal shift. Keep up, cornbread slapper. I want to give a special shout out to a particular level in Kirby's Dream Land 3. The Rob level. Also known as 3-6 or Sand Canyon 6. I feel like Sand Canyon 6 is the closest this game comes to becoming a quote-unquote good game. The level starts as normal, until Kirby's desert adventure is stopped by this giant black pyramid, such a sight. Going in leads us to this hub area, hosting a cannon that can fire us in several directions, each direction leading to different rooms. The goal of this mission is to explore these areas to collect pieces of Rob the Robot in order to put them back together. These differing rooms forego combat in favor of puzzles. Going down from the hub takes us to an area with all power-ups alongside every animal friend. And by going through the different areas, we need to see what combinations of partners and abilities we need to use in order to succeed at these puzzles. It's not really as much as a utilization of every partner and ability, it's mostly just the Kine and Ku show. It's a little underdeveloped, and if the player goes right from the hub, then the level just progresses with the player unable to go back. Like, I don't know, that's kind of an L maneuver, as I would say. But let's stay positive. This is the first level that really embraces what I feel like Kirby's Dream Land 3 should have been. The idea that these abilities are less for combat and more for puzzle solving. The idea of utilizing the differing movements and passives of animal friends to traverse the world and open up areas. For as short as this level is, it feels like a non-linear adventure. Like, I know I said this level was short, but it basically took me as long as an entire world just to figure it all out. It's not confusing. Okay, I mean the Kine light bulb thing, I don't know. But it just gives the player time to figure things out and the freedom to go back and forth between rooms. This is a good level. The best level in the game, in my opinion. And the shot of being at the top of the pyramid, with Rob's head and the clouds rapidly blowing by, was honestly pretty exhilarating. I could really put myself in that place, feeling the wind and imagining the view. It rocked. Definitely add that to places in video games I could be in all day. This game has a lot of that. Levels do often stick out from one another, I feel. Something about this game's art style always kinda gave me that cold feeling. Like the weather in all these locations would still be cold. As if dark matter is kinda covering up the sun and that would be chilling the land or something. I don't know. I can imagine standing on top of this pyramid. The weather being that perfect combination of heat and wind. Just windy enough so the warmth feels like a nice blanket. Y'all see what happened? I was criticizing this game 1 minute ago and here I am rambling about it again. I really do think that this is my final takeaway I got from Kirby's Dream Land 3. A good reminder that games don't have to be good in order to be cool. And nowadays I find myself attaching to the more weird and interesting games over stuff traditionally good. Yeah, I'm sure that hot new $60 game will be a fun experience and all, but is it something I'm going to think about from time to time? Is it something that I can sit down and talk about, such as games like this? I actually don't know. I'm still trying to learn about myself here and how I see things. These videos have helped a bit. But needless to say, I find value and have interest in certain games such as Kirby's Dream Land 3. It makes me feel things, it makes me think of when I first played it, and replaying it makes me think of its ideas and how the world sees it now. It's fascinating, and I enjoy the idea of a game where instead of rushing off to beat the big bad destroying the world, we instead spend it helping others around the world, and that is how we fight. The weaponization of hope to prevail with love. I don't know. Makes me think that there was probably a message to this. Maybe unknowingly, but even unintended messages from authors are still able to be read by some. Suppose it's obvious, but despite how dark this world can get, we can help make it better by helping out others. It feels kinda nice to finish a level and see a smiling character. It wasn't forced. I chose to go out of my way to do something for this character. And it really gives it a different feel from a lot of 2D platformers. True unintentionality would be saying that the unfun nature of the combat is to make a point towards the necessity of violence. And considering near the end of the game I was avoiding fighting, well, maybe it worked. All I'm saying is that y'all call Undertale genius? I mean, Kirby's Dream Land 3 came out first. Or the sluggishness of movement representing the tougher journey, the weight of Kirby's float, just the struggle to move around to insinuate the difficulty of this adventure. Now that's pretentious. So, is Kirby Dream Land 3 my favorite Kirby game? Yeah, sure. I mean, it might secretly be Kirby 64, that game might be a vibe. But yeah, I can say that Kirby Dream Land 3 is my favorite. But at the same time, why bother ranking? More and more I've been wondering the purpose of ranking things. Who cares about what's the best? What's my favorite? It's probably going to change over time anyways. Games are either fun, good, interesting, or not for me. Kirby's Dream Land 3 is interesting. Perhaps in unintentional ways, but I can still stand by the art direction and music. I think there was a certain aesthetic they wanted to convey with this. It most certainly missed most people. Most people are very put off by this game's looks, but it stuck to me a little. Also, the credits theme, that just slaps. With all my gameplay negatives, I will say the true final boss is pretty cool. This bleeding ass eyeball shooting blood at you. Yeah, nice sentence, Spacey. But yeah, and it was decently challenging too. Only time AI GUI is really viable. Cool shooter segment placed at the end of the game. Even cooler knowing that we're using a weapon formed from the combination of everyone's joy. Proven to dispel darkness on its own, now formed into a tool for combating the darkness of the world. So, would I recommend Kirby's Dream Land 3? I think it's an interesting experience. It's not the biggest time sink, but if you choose to forgo a guide, then you will have to replay levels. It's worth playing not in the fact that you'll have a great time, but for a game with a cool art style and story idea. Co-op may be worth playing. I mean, like a lot of things in this game, the co-op is arguably better in Kirby Superstar, but at least the partner gets to play as a unique character in the form of GUI that can inhale like Kirby, whereas in Kirby Superstar you would have to be Tak for that to happen. Downsides of co-op are kinda huge. Spawning in takes Kirby's health and removes his max health. Combat isn't very focused, so you aren't really helpful, and the gameplay is just gonna be GUI and Kirby getting hacky sacked around by the lack of iframes. Only one player can have an animal friend at a time, which is pretty lame. If another player tries to get on one, it kicks the player currently on one off to the ground. This is probably a sprite limitation thing. Running around with 4 character sprites might be too much for the SNES, not sure. But overall, yeah, it's a very classic Kirby game, I feel. One of the last. It's funny to think that the main appeal of Kirby now are these abilities and all the things the player can do with them. Considering the first Kirby's Dream Land didn't even have copy abilities. I feel like that's why abilities in combat weren't as big as a focus for Dream Land 3. Maybe the whole Dream Land series. Rather choosing to illustrate other cool things with Kirby than just the same copy abilities that this series eventually became known for. It's very different. So yeah, check it out if somehow y'all haven't played this game. I mean, I know this is one of the least popular Kirby games, but compared to the games I typically look at on this channel, you know, I feel like most of y'all have played this one. I suppose to end things off, I posed a question in the thumbnail that I have yet to acknowledge in this video. Is Kirby's Dream Land 3 the best Kirby game? Well, shoutouts to fellow Golly Gamer tier supporters, Ken Chiago and Celtris. Love y'all.